YouTube, we're back at it again here with the High Elf Faction Focus review. That's right. After a week, Jonton and I
Yes.
are back again, the two brothers, just two brothers to talk about. The Mannies are coming. But anyways, yeah, two brothers to talk about the High Elves. Again, this is a faction review faction review from the competitive multiplayer perspective. So campaign, doesn't really apply to us. These are just our opinions, blah, 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 caveat, caveat. You guys know the drill. So with that out of the way, let's get into the faction overview. John, take us away.
Alright, so the High Elves. High Elves are elite expensive, which is fitting with the lore. They are low in numbers, of course, so every High Elf life counts. Also lore friendly.
Elf lives matter.
Hashtag Elf lives matter too. Yeah. They're a faction with the latest Queen and the Crone DLC, who now have a lot of versatility where they actually didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
They're quite versatile. Not as versatile as, say, a faction like Empire or Dark Elves, but
no,
they definitely got some good tools and can deal with most factions pretty well. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, ever since the Queen and the Crone, they even have elven boxes and kite builds too. So now they have even more options.
Right.
They're looking very versatile here. After the Queen and the Crone.
I would say they were probably the biggest beneficiaries of the Queen. Well, them and Dark. Well, I guess both of those are the factors, but like Dark Elves too. But I think the High Elves were helped more in the Queen and the Crone.
Yeah. Dark Elves already had a lot of tools.
Yeah.
So they did not need the DLC nearly as much as the High Elves.
Exactly.
The High Elves were very basic.
Yeah. Dark Elves got better, but not by as much as the High Elves got. Increase in terms of viability.
Agreed.
So with that, let's go into the strengths right quick. So the first strength is, building on that, the versatilities. They do have tools for everything, especially after Queen and the Crone. So they have armor-piercing missiles. They have cheap archers. They have solid spears. They have great infantry that can cut up other infantry. They have a great cav in terms of Dragon Princes and the Fireborn. They have artillery. Although their artillery's a little, it's lackluster. It's just the bolt thrower, but it can be good in certain cases. Like
it has its purposes.
100%. It can snipe lizards. It can counter snipe other artillery. It can just be even just a target. Like you bring it for 700, you plop it down, and they're shooting at that for like a good 20, 30, 40, maybe a minute, and that's saving your dragon or your dragon princes from losing models. So it's definitely useful. And unlike Empire, they have monsters. So they have dragons, and they even have treemen now with Alariel. So they do have a lot of different builds they can bring, and the kitey build, of course, and that's something also Empire can't bring. So they are kind of like an Empire, foil a little bit. They have a lot of different tools, maybe some different tools than Empire, maybe not as much versatility, but a very, very versatile faction for sure.
Indeed. And moving on here, another one of their strengths is their strong castle lords and / hero options. So we got Alariel, we got Teclis, and Alariel right now is just crazy.
Probably OP.
I think everyone will agree on that.
Yeah.
Alariel's probably too good of a choice compared to the other ones. Teclis is definitely still good and has the matchups where he's very useful with that net. And he's a fielding foe and all that jazz, as well as regrowth, but Alariel's just on another level, if you ask me.
Because she's a duelist too. Teclis can't duel. Alariel can fuck up some bitches.
Well, Teclis can kind of duel, but I never bring that because it's way too expensive. Yeah. I mean, you don't want Teclis to get in the melee combat,
exactly.
Even with this sort of Teclis, or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah. And well, just to add on that, like the heroes, I think they're the handmaids of Everqueen are quite interesting. They give those buffs to archers and stuff, which is kind of funky. So you can build bring some interesting builds. I wouldn't say they're the most competitive, but they're cool.
They're a good addition. They also have the anti-large bonus that the nobles have, so they're basically like nobles with a ranged option. There are a couple disadvantages to them.
They don't have armor piercing. And the cost. Yeah. And nobles are very good. Nobles are probably the best hero variant of that type, I would say, in the game, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that completely. Yeah. Like paladins or empire captains or like a chaos champion or whatever the hell he's called. No one brings those guys for a reason.
And nobles are brought a lot because you can heal them with High Elves.
Indeed. But that's the main two strengths we pointed out for the High Elves. Let's move on to some weaknesses now.
So with the weaknesses, and we said elf lives matter, which is that's their flavor, but it also makes them very expensive, very costly. So if you lose micro for a second on certain units, that can be game-changing. For instance, if you take the Fireborn, which cost, I want to say 1,800? Is that right? 1,800, right?
1950.
1950. Are they 1950?
1950 or 1900.
No, I want to say 18. We're gonna confirm that real quick. Here we go. Going in. Is it 1850? We should probably check before. Oh well. 1900. You're right. Okay, so we were both wrong, kind of. Anyways, so they're 1900. So very, very expensive, and they're your only really mobile anti-large unit, right? So if you lose micro on them for a second, they can get destroyed. Or, for instance, if you go against Greenskins and they bring Wurzag, you're in trouble. Because they can just pin them and then foot a gork them, and there goes 1,900 spend in an instant. And you can't heal the models, right? So every model kill is so devastating. So, yeah.
You can't resurrect the models.
Exactly. You can't resurrect is what I meant. Sorry, yeah. So, so it's a very micro... I wouldn't say the most micro-intensive faction. Obviously, Wood Elves and certain other builds require more micro. Yeah. But that you do need to be on your game. And then
it's a faction that's harder to play because it punishes weak micro.
100%.
These do cost more.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I would say some of the units underperform for their cost. John and I disagree about Swordmasters. I think they underperform a little bit for their cost. They're just too easy to deal with because they're a little squishy. And then, of course, White Lions, which we've, that's been something the community's been talked about for a long time. I think White Lions, we'll get more in depth with them later, but there's something that doesn't quite perform for their cost. And
right.
Having mentioned them, John, why don't you elaborate?
Yep. Instead of later, we'll go ahead and elaborate now.
Yeah.
So, White Lions, they, I think most people agree they don't seem to be too cost effective. I mean, they don't have a ton of health. They have only 75 models, which I think is one of the main reasons why they're so bad. They also have actually really bad melee defense when they don't have their martial prowess.
Right.
They have 24, and for a unit that costs 800, that's a little bit low. That's a little bit low.
100%.
So White Lions, I definitely think if any unit on the High Elf roster needs a buff, it's probably the White Lions.
Right. And it's worth noting that, those things work in tandem, right? Like, they're low health and low model count combined with the martial prowess only being effective when they have leadership, right? So if they get those things work in tandem. So if they get a charge in from a cav unit or a large unit, it could just devastate their health, and their leadership drops, and they lose martial prowess, and then they start losing in battle. It's just like a knock-on effect.
Right. And moving on to balancing, we'll start with the White Lions.
Perfect.
So what we were thinking about is maybe giving them -2 melee attack, but giving them +4 bonus versus infantry. And we talk about bonus versus infantry in both our Bretonnian and Empire reviews for like Flagellants battle programs. It could be pretty good for White Lions too. It could be a good fix here.
Yeah.
This would make them be able to kill faster because, as Sakarma was telling me before we start this, White Lions do not kill fast. And I think that's definitely true. They seem to underperform in general. So
yeah,
there's some factions like Wood Elves and maybe Lizardmen that you'll bring them against, but they're not much useful in other places. And feel free to disagree, but
yeah. That's a contentious issue, right? People all have different opinions on White Lions.
Right.
Personally, I just think they don't have a role. They don't kill fast. Yeah. They don't hold. They're just good at nothing. But
all right. And if CA doesn't want to add a bonus versus infantry to them, they could also buff their melee defense because, like I said, it's 24 without martial prowess, which is just stupid for a high elf.
Yep. Or their health could go higher. Anything really.
Yep. They just need. They definitely need a little buff here. Definitely.
I agree 100%. Everyone knows my opinion on White Lions. But does everyone know my opinion on Swordmasters? We're going to find out. Well, I guess you'll learn it now. So John and I disagree. John thinks Swordmasters are quite good. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say they're in an okay place. I wouldn't mind, like you were mentioning earlier, I wouldn't mind looking at their health, a slight health buff by maybe 400 or 500. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm into. Like, my problem with Swordmasters is, okay, they're good. They have great stats, but they're very squishy. At 90 armor and 6,000 health, you compare that to, Chosen. Obviously, Chosen Sword and Board are different, but the same price, and Chosen have about a third more health and 30 more armor with silver shields. So
and less models.
And less models. So trying to kill Chosen with cav charges is much harder than trying to kill Swordmasters with, cav charges and single entity creatures. So I just find them to be too squishy.
Of course, high elves have healing, but you don't
That's
always
true.
want to bring healing.
Yeah, you don't always want, and also you can't be thrown away on Swordmasters all the time. You got to heal your dragons or your dragon princes or your heroes. There's a lot to heal, right? You can't heal everything, so unless you're Ilariel. But
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a slight buff.
A few hundred health, or maybe a few more melee defense, or maybe a little bit more armor, and just a little bit. Nothing radical.
I think its melee stats are good. I think it would have to be armor or health.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think their melee stats need to go any higher. Sorry, their fighting stats at least. Maybe defense, but yeah, either way. Just something, I think they need a little bit. Just a little bit. A tweak here or there. Just a tweak of the nipple, a smile on the face. You know, that's what they say in Canada.
I'd be okay with that.
Anyways, another balancing thing. This is one that is really dear to my heart. The one I'm very adamant about is Alarielle needs to be... This is the first debuff. This is a first for our series, because this is the first debuff we're recommending. But Alarielle needs to have weaker combat stats. I can't stress this enough. She has 55 melee defense, which is only 5 lower than Tyrion, who's like one of the greatest warriors in the Warhammer universe, from my understanding of the lore. So how she has the same amount of, or nearly the same combat stats to Tyrion, at least in terms of melee defense, boggles my mind. And she keeps it on the fucking eagle. When she's on an eagle, she still has 55 melee defense. And then you look at like Teclis, who has like 28 or something, like something what a caster should have. So Alarielle, they kind of fungled that, making her just too tanky.
And I don't know if that's a lore thing, but I don't feel like it is. But
yeah,
sure.
I went into right.
If anyone knows, then feel free to put that in the comments. But regardless, music armor are both in the line of thought that large in general should have lower melee defense.
Yeah.
Because they're easier to hit as they're larger.
I mean, we're playing... Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Like an eagle should not have 55 melee defense, even if it is Alarielle. And she is hands down the best lord on the High Elf roster.
Yeah.
And there should not be hands down a best lord on any roster.
Agreed 100%. Alarielle, I mean, you can make an argument for being Teclis in certain matchups, but yeah, Alarielle still, in terms of what she can provide, just better in every way, in most ways. So yeah.
Yeah, most ways. Teclis definitely has some places.
Yeah.
Tyrion.
People say against Skaven, but I never bothered.
Whenever I bring Tyrion, it's more for fun. He can do some crazy things with his that fire sword.
Yeah, Sunfang.
He's pretty useful, but I mean, compared to Alarielle, he can just do so much more.
I agree.
The magic, the mobility, fear, a lot of good stuff there.
Yep. Yeah. So I just think
she can drop. Sorry.
No, go on. No, keep going.
She can even drop a banishment and do just as much as damage as Tyrion's Sunfang. So.
Yeah, her magical kit is really good, which is fine. Obviously, you want them to have good magic kits, but yeah, just her combat stats are just way too high. So she needs to be debuffed.
Yeah, I think those melee defense needs to be. Okay, so she's supposed to be a very defensive lord. I get it. So she still needs to have a fairly high melee defense for a large creature.
Yeah.
I guess, but I'd say more around 40, and that's minus 15 melee defense. So
yeah, and
that
lore
is
wise,
quite a lot.
I mean, I did some research on the lore. It didn't seem like she's like a great warrior, but I could be wrong. But even if she is, like, I don't know, like having her be able to be on an eagle, cast spells, and then like beat up someone like Wurzag, who I would assume is good at fighting. You know, guy's a greenskin.
She
kicks his ass. And she costs about the same, and she gets a whole lore magic, and so does he, of course. He's a good lord too, don't get me wrong, but she's on an eagle, which makes her more mobile, and she has those bound healing spells, and she's just too good. She's too good, and she needs a nerf.
Star of Avalorn.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Lasts so long and does so much heal.
So that's Alarielle.
She definitely doesn't need to be that tanky.
No, doesn't need to be that tanky. So that's Alarielle. That's our 3 balancing things. So a couple of buffs and 1 debuff. But let's move on to our little wishes. My favorite part.
Yes. And I will start out here with the Dragon Mages. Now, the Dragon Mages would be lore appropriate. High Elves are supposed to have Dragon Mages. So they would be cool. They would be very powerful as well. Definitely an alternative option to Teclis or Alarielle there. However, they would make the standard High Elf Lords completely obsolete, which the Karma's going to get into later.
Yeah.
All right. And another thing I wish for is White Lion Chariots, which are AP Chariots. I'd love to have some AP Chariots against some factions like the Dwarves and stuff. That could be very useful.
I hate
now, Karma doesn't like more Chariots in the game. And
I hate Chariots.
I don't either. I'd love a world without Chariots, but if they're in the game, then I think the High Elves should have their AP Chariots.
They're cool in campaign, but playing against them on multiplayer is just so gross.
They're tough here to deal with.
Yeah.
For sure. But they're part of the game, so.
No, I feel ya. Listen, I wouldn't say get them out of the game, and they're not going to change, so it's unfortunate. I just don't like them, personally.
That's okay.
Okay. And moving on, though, something I would like to see is to buff to Standard Lords. That's my little wish. I mean, right now, Standard Lords are just kind of useless. The generic Lords, rather. They can be on dragons, which is kind of cool. But if you compare them to the stats of a regular dragon, they're virtually the same, but you pay more. Of course, you get a few abilities here and there, but then you lose the ability to bring something like Alariel or Teclis, who are just so much better in terms of what they can do.
On the dragon with their abilities is like
3,000
over 3,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Gullet's still probably going to be able to.
Yeah, he's going to probably beat that ass. I mean, you have the princess who can fire, which is kind of cool. She has the bow, but even then, I find it's just lackluster. I find it rarely does enough damage to really make it worth it. So yeah, I just would like to see Standard Lords buffed. Maybe a cost decrease would be nice, or an increase to the missile damage of the princess, or maybe like an actual cool ability on the Lord, like something that's interesting. You know, anything like that, it would be fun. Instead of just buffs. So that's our little wishes. Now we're going to get into the matchups. Yeah, so take us away, John. Start us off.
All right, so we're going to start with the Wood Elves. High Elves versus Wood Elves. High Elves have a pretty big advantage here.
Yep.
Dragon Princes destroy pretty much everything. They can even take care of Azraite Spears because it's cycle charging. They have shields, they have physical resistance, so they're not the weakest against Weight Watchers, although Weight Watchers can definitely put out a lot of damage on them. But, like, you can bring 4 Dragon Princes, they're just not going to be able to focus them down fast enough.
Right. Not enough ammo, even. So,
White Lions are great against them, actually, so one of the few matches where White Lions are good.
Right.
And the High Elf Archers are very cost-effective as well, because everything on the Wood Elf roster is lightly armored.
Yeah, you can even bring Lothram Seaguar with silver shields, so you can, counter snipe. And then there's those kite builds you can bring now. It's very difficult for Wood Elves, I think.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a bad matchup.
Another place that the High Elves have an advantage is against the Empire. It's pretty much the same reasons against the Wood Elves, obviously for different matchup specifics, but, very cheap archers. Yeah, cheap archers, kitey builds. Dragon Princes do well against Empire, especially with the healing. Their lords are better. There's just a lot of things that the High Elves can bring to deal with Empire that Empire can't really match up with. And the No, what were you saying?
And Wood Elves and the Empire doesn't have as bad a matchup as Wood Elves. Wood Elves is like one of those really bad ones.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the Wood Elves. Agreed. Not as bad as the Wood Elves, but I'd still say it's pretty bad. Like, I had trouble against High Elves as Empire, for sure. Moving on, take us away, John, with the Beastmen.
Now we got the Beastmen, which we feel are pretty even. They have good magic. They have Fear and Terror, good cav. So yeah, they can deal with the Beastmen pretty good. I don't think there's much to say about this one.
No. Well, I would say Alariel is a little bit. This is one matchup where she really shines because Beastmen have weak duelist options other than Gorbals, and Gorbals are obviously pretty kind of slow and they don't have the greatest mass. Yeah. So she can just run around and like kill Kazrak or kill Morgur or kill the other one. What's his name? Malagor, and cause some terror or fear. And it's just hard to kill what's her face. So.
Yep.
Yeah, you can bring Harpies, I guess, but nah. Anyways, another matchup which is kind of funny is the Vampires one. So this is a fair matchup if both players play fair. But if you want to be a dick, then High Elves have the advantage because you can bring like an all-flyer build, an all-Dragon Prince build, and Vampires are going to struggle against that mightily. Maybe with the increase to Blood Knights, it might be different. I have to try it out, but if you bring like a bunch of dragons and Alariel and some phoenixes, and you bring some dragon princes on the ground and some archers and spread them around and just try and kite them out, basically, it's going to be difficult for Vampires to win that battle.
Right, I agree.
But maybe like an all blood prince build might, or what are they called? Not blood prince. Blood knight, that's the one I'm looking for. Maybe an all blood knight build might work. But all I have to say is that even if you play fair, but if you want to play like a douchey build, it can be pretty one-sided, I think.
Definitely. Now let's talk about the greenskins. So. The greenskins, we would say that's pretty even.
Yep.
Greenskins probably have a slight advantage.
Yep.
But it's even for pretty much all the reasons that the High Elves are even with Beastmen. So.
Yeah. Not much to say there.
And moving on, same thing with the Dark Elves.
Yep. Same as greenskins. Not like there's different builds you can bring on both sides to counter each other, and yeah, they each have tools to deal with each other. Dark Elves again have a little bit of the advantage, especially if they bring like I faced, if everyone saw me against Crusader, he brought the same build 3 times and beat me each time with Chariots and Cold One Knights. Like, that's difficult to counter. But I'm sure there's, ways to beat that. I was kind of, I got in my own head. So yeah, so it definitely advantaged Dark Elves, but not by much.
Right. And as far as High Elves versus Bretonnia, we would say that Bretonnia is not a good matchup for High Elves.
No.
Now, in our Bretonnia review, you might have heard me said that I think it might not be a bad matchup. I have since changed my mind. So, having heard everyone's opinions on the forums, everyone seems to agree that the High Elves do not have a good match against Bretonnia, and I can definitely see it. I didn't personally experience that in my High Elf week, but I can definitely see it, so I'm okay with saying that that's the status quo on that.
I didn't face much Bretonnia as High Elves, but when I was playing as Bretonnia and I played High Elves, I rolled over them. I don't think I lost a match, and I think it was never even close. Like, it's just the anti-large cav, right? It's hard for L to deal with anti-large cav. Moving on, let's talk about the dwarves. So we both agree it's pretty even. Dwarves have different builds they can bring to counter High Elves, so it depends what they bring. But yeah, ultimately it depends on the skill of the player. I think in this one it's quite even.
Right. Now moving on to Chaos, and of course it's a bad match against Chaos. But, who doesn't have a bad
matchup against Chaos? Exactly.
Chaos is so strong.
They are very strong right now.
Shaggoths, of course, are a huge problem. The Summers of Rage are extremely good. Hounds can get into archers and muck up Sisters of Avalorn, although they will win in melee. There's Fate, Chosen, also really good in this matchup. Good.
And Chosen are really good at taking cav charges.
And the Soul of Damnation, also extremely good in this matchup.
Yeah. So that's the Chaos. Lizardmen, I would say it's pretty even. Chaos is bad, but Lizardmen's pretty even. You have goon squads you can bring against their large things like phoenixes and dragons, and of course you have the sisters. If you can protect them, it could be quite good.
Right. I agree with that. And as far as Norska goes, I'm going to say that Norska is even, although during the week I admit that I was not able to fight Norska all that much. On paper, it sounds like the High Elves might have an advantage since they have a lot of fire damage. But I don't know. For now, I'm going to put Norska in even. We'll definitely have to...
Yeah.
We might change that in the future.
Agreed. Like, if I had to guess, like you said, on paper, I would give it to High Elves, but I could see how it could be even, so we'd have to try it out more. So that's a little bit of a question mark. We didn't play much Skaven, but again, it's kind of a paper thing. I think the advantage is the High Elves. I mean, before, it was very heavily Skaven skewed. Skaven skewed, that's fun to say. with the douche furnaces and all that, but now that High Elves have that armor-piercing missiles and that anti-large cav, it's much more in the favor of... Because the Dragon Princes alone, or sorry, the Fireborn, rather, can be devastating to Skaven. It's so hard to deal with them.
And the only thing they really have to deal with them is their Warp Lightning cans, but you have to counter to that with the bolt throwers.
Not to mention map-specific, right? If it's a bumpy map, you're fucked. How are you going to use the laser beam? If it's that map with all those trees, or if it's anything with like a hill in the middle, very difficult for Skaven. So I think it's a bad matchup for Skaven. Good run for High Elves.
So High Elves are good against Skaven. But High Elves are actually bad against Tomb Kings.
Yep.
High Elves, and the reason that they're bad against Tomb Kings is because, like we mentioned, High Elves put a lot of spend into a few units, and Tomb Kings excel at singling out targets and destroying them from range. So they have a Bone Giant, Trust the God, and a Shocking Great Bow.
Yeah.
What are they called? The Fireborn?
They're in trouble.
Close.
Yep. They're in big trouble.
They die.
And if you lose your Fireborn, that's the only mobile anti-large you have, besides, nobles who could be mucked up with chaff. So it's a bad matchup for sure. So with that all the way, let's go into our conclusion.
Yep. So our conclusion is that we would put them in tier 2 out of the 3 tiers.
Yeah.
They are a very balanced faction, not too strong, not too weak. So a good job to CA on High Elves overall. Not much to change about them. We only have a few balance suggestions, and we like where they are.
Yeah.
Like we said, a little bit harder faction to play, not so noob friendly, but not.
But I wouldn't say noob unfriendly. I wouldn't say they're noob unfriendly though.
True that.
Yeah, I would say like Skaven, are a little bit more noob unfriendly compared to High Elves and other factions like that. But yeah, to echo John, agreed. I think that this is one of the most balanced factions in the game. As you can see, a lot of these matchups are even. Some of them they have a big advantage, sure, but I think that it's not like the advantage they have isn't gross. It's not like, oh, a Shaggoth, I can't beat it. There we go, GG. It's not like it doesn't break your heart to play High Elves ever, which is a good thing. So I actually love to play High Elves because they have a lot of variety. So yeah, I think CA did a really good job with High Elves, and I think this is the first of the 3 factions we reviewed, these are definitely the best plays for sure.
Definitely.
And with that, guys, I think that'll about wrap it up for us. So thank you for joining us for the third entry into this, I guess 14-week long road of trials, I like to call it. And next we'll see you. We'll talk about the greenskins.
So be ready for that, guys. Thanks for joining us, and you'll have a great day.
Thanks a lot, guys.